Welcome back to the Stories of Northern Life podcast, brought to you by the Sault Ste. Marie Museum. I'm your host, Nicole, and today, in another episode of Reading History, I am bringing you another press release, this one by the International Joint Commission, about the pollution of the Detroit, St. Clair, and St. Mary's rivers. So, let's get into it. We are reading a press release about the summary report on pollution of the St. Mary's River, St. Clair River, and Detroit River, presented to the International Joint Commission Advisory Board. And this was published in September 1968. So here's just a little blurb from that summary report. Summary report of pollution of the St. Mary's River, St. Clair River, Detroit River to the International Joint Commission. This report was prepared by the Lake Huron, Lake Superior, Lake Erie Advisory Board on Control of Pollution of Boundary Waters. Water quality measurements were made by the following agencies: 1. Detroit Program Office and International Joint Commission, Detroit Field Unit, FWPCA. 2. Ontario Water Resource Commission. 3. Michigan Water Resources Commission. And 4. Michigan Department of Public Health. Measurements on all sampling ranges shown on the maps were reviewed, and those areas exceeding objectives for boundary water quality control were analyzed in detail, identifying the sources of degradation. United States and Canada programs and compliance schedules for control waters of pollution are described in detail. There is the introduction to the summary report. So let's get back to this press release. So this was put out by the International Joint Commission, United States and Canada, Washington and Ottawa. Press release. For release, AM, Tuesday, November 12th. Pollution of the Detroit, St. Clair, and St. Mary's rivers. The International Joint Commission is today releasing the summary report on pollution of the St. Mary's, St. Clair, and Detroit rivers, which it received in October from its Lake Superior Huron Erie Advisory Board on Control of Pollution of Boundary Waters. This special report, which summarizes the current status of pollution and of pollution abatement in these three rivers, was requested by the Commission because of its concerns over the continued degradation of water quality on these important international waterways. The report indicates that discharges of inadequately treated municipal and industrial wastes are causing impairment to water quality in each of these rivers. Phenol and oil concentrations in all three, coliform concentrations in the Detroit and St. Clair, and iron concentrations in the Detroit River fail to meet the water quality objectives established for these waterways by the United States and Canadian governments. Oil, floating solids, and discoloration are serious problems, and aesthetic value are being adversely affected. Waste discharges from ships and pleasure boats using these waterways aggravate the pollution problems. The International Joint Commission's involvement in problems of pollution of the connecting channels of the Great Lakes system dates from 1951. In that year, the governments of Canada and the United States accepted the water quality objectives recommended by the Commission as the criteria to be met in maintaining these waters in satisfactory condition as required by the Boundary Waters Treaty of 1909. That treaty prohibits pollution in either country to the injury of health or property in the other. As a procedure to ensure that the remedial measures necessary to achieve the objectives would be put into effect, the two governments also authorized the Commission to maintain continuing supervision over the pollution of these boundary waters. Accordingly, since that time, the Commission has kept itself currently informed of conditions through periodic progress reports from the advisory boards it established for this purpose and through personal inspections. In particular, the IJC has kept itself abreast of the federal, state, and provincial programs in both countries which have been developed to control and abate pollution of these waters. Those programs, especially those of the United States Federal Water Pollution Control Administration, the Michigan Water Resources Commission, and the Ontario Water Resources Commission, are described in some detail in the board's summary report. In view of the situation revealed in this report, the Commission has decided that it would be useful and appropriate at this time to make it available for public information as a means of adding further impetus to the pollution abatement program it describes. As a further step in the exercise of its responsibilities, the Commission intends to convene in January public international meetings at Windsor, Ontario, and Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, to inquire into the adequacy and effectiveness of the pollution abatement programs referred to in the summary report, and to ascertain why the established water quality objectives are not being met. At these meetings, the Commission will invite the water pollution control agencies and enforcement authorities having jurisdiction in each country to describe the abatement programs they have underway and their timetable for achievement of the said water quality objectives in the Detroit, St. Clair, and St. Mary's rivers. The municipalities and industries involved and others interested will also be given opportunities to submit statements at the meetings. The Commission intends by this means to develop an informed judgment on the adequacy and effectiveness of the control measures that have been taken, on additional measures that might be taken to accelerate or improve abatement, and on ways of minimizing pollution in the interim before the scheduled control measures take full effect. An appropriate public notice will be issued at a later date, specifying the time and place of these meetings and the procedures to be followed. The Commission hopes and expects that these international meetings will serve to mobilize more effectively the efforts of all concerned in a vigorous concerted attack upon the serious situation in these waters, which are of such importance to citizens of both United States and Canada. There is the press release of the pollution report on these three rivers of the Great Lakes, presented in 1968. And it seemed that they had started to get involved in the issue of pollution all the way in 1951 and had even set up a Boundary Waters Treaty of 1909. So we have really always been concerned with the issue of pollution. We're always trying to protect and preserve our waterways, and just think how important our waterways are to us, and how much we are really trying to do to preserve them. I hope this was of interest to you. There's some cool facts that we got to learn, and I will be back next week with another episode. So thanks for listening. Bye.
Did you know you can get unlimited admission to the Sault Ste. Marie Museum for a whole year for just $15? Yep, that's right, and there's more perks to that too. Go to Sault Museum, that's SAULT museum.ca, under Visit, and learn more about our membership options. And if you're a business, corporate or nonprofit, we have plans for you too. Reach out to us by emailing info@saultmuseum.ca. with any inquiries.
Hi, I'm J.L. Fizzell, and I write and publish poetry inspired by nature and the art of being human. These are some of my words. One of the things I love more than poetry is story and storytelling. And I've always really loved nature because I spend time thinking about the kind of stories that nature could tell us if we could speak the same language or speak its language. So this particular poem is about stars and stories, and you'll find it in my 4th book, Human Nature. It's called Infinite. I know now that these stars rent their place in the sky, and I can't help but wonder the price or why they choose to do so. Even these ancients are finite, only leaving stories behind, and when those words become forgotten, they become feelings on the wind, the ones you can't decipher, telling stories you know off by heart, but could never put into words. I hope that this poem took you somewhere inside yourself that you needed to go. You can listen to my story here on the Stories of Northern Life podcast. Links are in the show notes.